The time for everything, God's sovereignty over our existence. Time waits for no one. It moves forward, relentless, indifferent to our tears, our cries, our prayers. There is something eternal about it, something that makes us feel small, insignificant. But what if time is not just a straight line? What if it carries a greater purpose, invisible to human eyes? Observe the sunrise over the desert. The light cuts through the darkness like a divine sword, revealing golden sands that seem endless. The wind whispers ancient secrets, stories of lives that came and went, leaving marks as fleeting as footprints in the sand. It is here, in this contrast between the vastness of the sky and the fragility of the earth, that the truth begins to emerge. But what is this truth? Why does time sometimes seem so cruel? Why do some things flourish while others wither? Is everything random, or is there a master behind this silent symphony? The answer is not found in bustling cities, where men and women race against the clock, trying to control what was never theirs. It is found in the silence, in the ordered rhythm of the stars, in the gentle breath of a sovereign God who rules over all things. Man looks to the sky and sees only clouds, but God looks at man and sees the heart. There is something within us that cries out for control, for order, for meaning. We want to be masters of our destiny, rulers of our time. But are we destined for that? Or are we trying to steal what was never ours? Look at the tree. It does not choose when to sprout, when to bloom, or when to shed its leaves. It simply lives in the rhythm given to it. Its existence is a silent dance with the Creator. But man is different. He plants today but wants to harvest tomorrow. He dreams of the future but neglects the present. He clings to the past but loses the now. Why do we cry when we should smile? Why do we fight when we should rest? Why do we build when we should dismantle? There is a time for everything under heaven, but how many of us truly live in that time? How many of us trust the one who orders time? The truth is, the chaos is not in the world. It is within us. It is our impatience, our arrogance, our attempt to control what only God can govern. And as we run against the clock, as we try to force doors that are still closed, the Master of Time watches in silence. He knows the right moment will come. He knows everything has a purpose, but we keep running, breathless, blind to the rhythm he has established. The man walks along the beach at dusk, his steps marked in the damp sand. The sound of the waves is constant, like a distant echo of something he cannot reach. He looks back and sees the marks of his journey being erased by the sea. This is how he feels, powerless, forgotten, consumed by time that always seems to be against him. He remembers the day everything changed, the wrong decision, the closed door, the lost opportunity. He had run so much, fought so hard, but in the end, none of it mattered. What remained was the weight of choices made at the wrong time, words spoken when silence was needed. Now he carries this burden with him, like a stone tied around his neck, pulling him down with every step he takes. Why did God allow this? Why did the suffering last so long? Why did the weeping seem longer than the laughter? He can no longer distinguish right from wrong, now from later. He is lost in a maze of unanswered questions, surrounded by invisible walls he himself built. But there is something deeper in this conflict, something he has yet to realize. It is not just the weight of wrong choices or the fear of an uncertain future. It is doubt. Doubt that God is truly in control. Doubt that there is a greater purpose in his pain. Doubt that time, which seems so cruel, can be used for something good. And so he keeps walking, trying to find meaning where everything seems meaningless. But the more he searches, the more confused he becomes. The more he tries to control, the more he loses control. And deep down, he knows something needs to change. But what? Can he trust a God whose ways seem so incomprehensible? Can he accept that time, which seems his greatest enemy, is actually his greatest gift? The man falls to his knees on the beach, as if the weight of the world has finally become too much for him to bear. The sky darkens above, clouds gathering into an impending storm. The wind begins to blow harder, carrying with it sand that cuts like invisible blades. It is as if nature is reflecting the chaos within him. "Why?" he shouts to the sky, his voice lost in the roar of the wind. "Why does nothing make sense? Why does the suffering never end? Why does time seem to conspire against me? He looks to the horizon, but there are no answers there. Only the emptiness of an infinite sea and a sky growing darker. But then something happens. In the midst of the storm, he realizes the problem is not time. It is not the circumstances or the wrong choices. The problem is him. He is trying to control what was never his to control. He is trying to understand what he can never comprehend. He is fighting against a God whose wisdom is infinite, whose ways are unfathomable. What if I am wrong, he thinks, his mind spinning in a whirlwind of doubts and fears. What if all this pain is part of something greater? What if time is not my enemy, but my teacher? But these thoughts bring little comfort. He still feels the crushing weight of his own helplessness. He is still lost, trapped between despair and hope, between doubt and faith, between chaos and order. And as the storm approaches, he knows he must make a choice. Trust in the silence of God, or keep shouting against the wind. The man closes his eyes, exhausted. The sound of the storm still echoes around him, but something changes. In the inner silence of his soul, he hears a voice. It is not loud, nor imposing. It is soft, almost imperceptible. And yet, it pierces through the chaos like light cutting through darkness. You don't need to understand everything, the voice says. You just need to trust. He slowly opens his eyes, and the first thing he notices is a soft light shining on the horizon. It is not the sun, nor the moon. It is something different. Something that seems to come from another place, another time. The storm is still there, but now it feels distant, as if losing strength. He feels a calm he hasn't experienced in a long time. God is in control, he thinks, the words rising in his mind like a revelation. He always has been. And then he begins to see clearly. The wrong choices, the suffering, the closed doors, all of it was part of a greater plan, even if he couldn't understand it at the time. Time was not his enemy. It was God's instrument, shaping him, teaching him, preparing him for something he could not yet see. The wind dies down. The sky begins to clear. He rises slowly, feeling a new strength in his bones. It is not his own strength. It is the strength that comes from knowing he is not alone, that there is a master behind it all, guiding every step, every moment, every breath. You cannot control time, he whispers to himself, as if finally understanding, but you can trust the one who created it. The beach around him feels different now. The waves still crash, but they no longer seem threatening. They are a reminder that just as the sea obeys the tides, everything in life obeys the rhythm of God. And in that rhythm, there is peace, there is purpose, there is hope. There is a time for everything under heaven. The man hears these words as if they were spoken directly to his heart. He pauses for a moment, absorbing every syllable, every phrase, as if they were the breath of God blown upon him. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot what was planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. Time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Each word resonates within him, like an ancient melody he once knew but had forgotten. He realizes his struggle was not against time, but against himself, against his own inability to accept that every moment was ordained by God. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. Here, he pauses. These contrasts are so human, so real. He thinks of all the times he tried to force something at the wrong moment, all the times he ignored the rhythm established by God. And now finally he understands. Time is not random. Every moment has a purpose. What profit has the worker from his labor? I have seen the burden God has laid on the children of men to occupy them. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, without which man cannot discover the work God has done from beginning to end. He takes a deep breath. Everything that was and will be has already been ordained by God. There is no room for anxiety, for control, for despair. Only trust, only surrender. I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it, and nothing taken from it. And God does this so that men will fear him. What is has already been, and what will be has already been, and God requires an account of what is past. He looks to the horizon again, but this time with new eyes. His life is not just about the here and now, it is about something much greater, something eternal. All go to one place, all come from dust, and to dust all return. Who knows if the spirit of man goes upward, and if the spirit of the animal goes downward to the earth? So it is better to be wise. Human wisdom is vain if it is not used to glorify God. The man resumes his walk along the beach, but now his steps are firm. The sun returns to the horizon, illuminating his path as if God were smiling upon him. He understands now, there is a time for everything under heaven. It is not his responsibility to control the divine clock, but to align himself with the eternal rhythm established by the Creator. But what does this mean for you? For me? For all of us who struggle against the weight of our own choices and circumstances? It means we must learn to wait. To wait not just for good things or better moments, but for God, for His direction, His purpose, His perfect timing. There is a time for everything, says the sacred text. But how often do we try to rush what God wants to delay? How often do we cry when we should laugh, fight when we should rest, speak when we should be silent? God's time is not our time. He sees beyond the now, beyond the visible. He knows when to plant and when to harvest, when to build and when to demolish. And we need to learn to trust this infinite wisdom. But trusting is not easy. Trust requires faith. Faith requires surrender. Surrender requires humility. And humility is recognizing that we are not the lords of our own lives. We are servants of a sovereign God who knows what is best for us. Even when the weeping seems longer than the laughter, even when the pain seems endless, God is working. He is shaping, teaching, preparing something greater. So stop fighting against time. Stop trying to force doors that are still closed. Instead, seek to live in God's time. When He says wait, wait. When He says advance, advance. When He says be silent, be silent. For only He knows the right moment for everything. And remember, suffering is not in vain. Every tear, every pain, every difficult moment has a purpose. God is using even the chaos to mold you into the image of Christ. He is writing a story greater than you can imagine, a story that will culminate in eternal glory, where suffering will be forgotten and joy will be complete. You don't need to understand everything today. You just need to trust. Trust that God is in control. Trust that He never makes mistakes. And trust that in His perfect time, all will be revealed. Now, think about your own life. Where are you trying to control what only God can govern? Which doors are you forcing open while God asks you to wait? What is the weight you carry with you, as if it were your responsibility to solve everything on your own? Time here is brief, but eternity is infinite. Every moment we live is an opportunity to seek God's glory, to trust Him even when circumstances seem desperate. Do not waste your life chasing fleeting dreams or seeking human approval. Seek something greater. Seek eternity. Are you living for the world or for the Creator of the world? Are you building treasures on earth which can be destroyed by time, or in heaven where nothing perishes? Remember, everything we do here will be judged not by human standards, but by God's eternal wisdom. So, surrender your time to Him. Surrender your plans, your dreams, your struggles. Trust that He knows what is best for you. And remember this, in the end, it is not our achievements that matter, but our faithfulness to His call. For only God can give meaning to our time and purpose to our existence. The man walks toward the horizon, now illuminated by a radiant sun. Each step he takes echoes the divine promise, I am in control. He does not know what the future holds, but he doesn't need to know. All he needs is to trust the Master of Time, who governs all things with perfect wisdom. And you, are you ready to trust, to surrender your time, your life, your heart to the God who never makes mistakes? Remember, time may be uncertain, but God is unchanging. The world may be full of chaos, but He is perfect peace. Circumstances may seem unjust, but He is just. So trust in God's time. Trust that He is writing a story greater than you can imagine. And remember this eternal truth. There is a time for everything under heaven. Do not try to rush what God wants to delay. Do not try to explain what He has chosen to conceal. Just trust, just wait, just live for His glory. Trust in God's time, for He never makes mistakes.